What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today?
You're not interested in art?
No.
Now look, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have a conversation.
From Chicago, this is Filmspotting. I'm Adam Kempenaar.
And I'm Josh Larson.
Renton, Spud, Sick Boy, Tommy, Begbie. It's been 30 years since we were introduced to the Trainspotting gang. This week, we take another look at Danny Boyle's seminal 1996 film.
And the 2026 slate of nominees for the Filmspotting Pantheon. That and more ahead on Filmspotting.
Welcome to Filmspotting. Later in the show, Josh, 9 new nominees for the Filmspotting Pantheon. Our eclectic, let's go with eclectic, movie Hall of Fame. Are you ready?
I'm ready. How does one get into the Filmspotting Pantheon, Adam? We will break it all down. And then we'll get to those nominees.
Yeah, producer Sam will join us for that. We each get 3 nominees, but only 2 films will enter the Filmspotting Pantheon once the process is complete. We will also have yet another very special edition of Massacre Theatre. This one is going to be Accent Palooza. Are you ready for that?
As ready as I ever am.
A quick reminder, Filmspotting is now available as a video podcast. You can watch the show on YouTube. For a link to video episodes, go to filmspotting.net/episodes, or yes, go to YouTube, youtube.com/filmspotting. But first, Trainspotting. Josh, when this movie was released in the US in the summer of 96, it came out in the UK 30 years ago this month. We would have been the ideal age, just a handful of years younger than Ewan McGregor's skankily gorgeous Mark Renton. Yes, I'm going with skankily gorgeous, to fully embrace the exhilarating and nihilistic charms of Trainspotting. After all, the film's legendary poster has to remain one of the all-time college guy dorm accessories. And back in 96, we would have been right on the precipice of having to choose life and choose a job and choose a career. But here's the thing. I'm going to propose that there may not have been 2 people on the planet who had less in common with Rents, Sick Boy, Spud, and the lot than us. We were 2 Midwestern. I didn't know you then. Again, I'm proposing this. We were 2 Midwestern, small town / suburban 80s kids who heard Nancy Reagan's flimsy just say no plea and actually took it to heart. Okay, so we weren't using heroin. Maybe our clothes were heroin chic? Yeah, they didn't really sell that look at Maurice's in the mall. After choosing life, a job, and a career, do you remember what was next in that famous monologue? Choose a family.
Health insurance?
That's 5th.
You probably want to get the health insurance before the family these days.
Of course, right. Considering you and Debbie got married 5 minutes after graduation, I'd say that's exactly what you did. For my part, I may not have had it all figured out, but one word no one has ever used to describe me is purposeless. If we couldn't connect, and I mean at all, with the material on a personal level, then there must have been something so charged about the filmmaking, so impressive about the choices Danny Boyle made, that we, and all the other wankers like us, were overwhelmed by it. In Blank Check's series on Boyle, Trainspotting, Griffin Newman references some DVD extras where Boyle offers some illuminating background. Boyle says that he and partners John Hodge, the screenwriter, and Andrew McDonald, the producer, whose first and previous collaboration was 1994's Shallow Grave, were resolutely committed to 2 things: that they had to show the positive side of heroin. The drugs at times were fun. And this one was so important, it was a blood pact between them. The movie couldn't exceed 90 minutes. Why? According to Griffin, paraphrasing Boyle, the energy of this film will not be able to sustain over 90 minutes. And at a certain point, the audience will not want to spend more time with these characters. Josh, what do you think was the best choice Boyle and company made? Was it the under 90-minute blood pact? The audacity to depict drug use as pleasurable? Something else? Or will you set aside the craft and actually tell us that you identified more with these aimless Scottish lads than I let on?
I mean, it's worse, Adam. I had chosen life so much earlier. We got married between junior and senior year. I mean,
oh man, it is worse.
I
forgot the timing.
The kids came many, many years later. Okay. But yeah, I don't remember at all having a shred of identification with these characters, nor was that necessarily what I was looking for. I mean, I was just looking for, I'm sure I had heard the buzz and the excitement about this movie by the time I got a chance to see it. And that's what I was looking at this movie through the perspective of a film critic already. So yeah, no poster on my wall, no poster on our first apartment wall. But boy, did I respond to it as a film in the way that you're describing. And I don't think this is at least my third watch now, possibly the fourth, but third, I know for sure. I don't think any watch, even though I still think it's an incredibly good film, as we'll dig into, any watch will match that first experience because of the filmmaking.
It's the first high, appropriately. I'm with you.
I mean, it's kind of in that experience as Pulp Fiction. Like the filmmaking is so vibrant and so tactile, and you get whisked along in it before you even have a chance to process much what's happening, except that you're enjoying the ride. And there's some very intricate filmmaking techniques they employ to get that effect that we will also spend some time on. Yeah, that was my first experience with it. Now, to your question, I mean, every time I see a movie, one more movie in my life, I am more sure that no movie needs to be over 2 hours. So I want to say the 90-minute Blood Pact was the best choice. I think for the narrative propulsion reasons and perhaps character reasons you laid out, it's a good choice. I think it's just a good choice aesthetically, as well, for a movie like this to be that short. But I'm going to say the choice of choosing the allure of drugs is what makes Trainspotting perhaps not the thrill ride or the dorm room poster type movie. I don't think that's why it's a good choice. I think it's a good choice because it makes the movie honest. And I think if you had only had a film all about the degradation, it may have been effective. We have movies like that about addiction. But this is, in a way, the whole package that allows me, someone who has no association with a life like this. I don't know where I would have found heroin if I wanted to in 1996. But I could then begin to understand the trajectory that these characters were on and understand, I think, more fully and thoroughly the degradation that they reach. How they got there is because for someone to choose, if you're putting this in a matter of choices, and that's not always entirely appropriate when we're talking about addiction, but if someone was to choose where most of these characters end up, we have to understand why they would choose what initially got them there.
Yes.
And I think that Trainspotting does that without glorifying it. I think it really balances this tightrope that there's no hypocrisy here. There is just a commitment to wanting to honor what drew these guys in and why they would give up so much to achieve this experience, while also at the same time being completely honest about what it cost them. I think there's a crucial integrity to Trainspotting that was its initial hallmark for me, and still I think is its hallmark 30 years later.
Yeah, I'm with you. Both are crucial choices to the success of this film. And you alluded to this just in terms of the propulsion, that opening too, just throwing us right into that chase with the music. And of course, that's throwing us right into the middle of the film. We eventually catch up to that point in the movie is another thing that kind of makes this film special. We know we are going to be along for a ride with this movie. I am with you. And I'd kind of forgotten this because it has been long enough since I've seen this film. And I think this is only the third time I've seen it. Watched it, I think, as you did, to prepare for the show we did with Danny Boyle and the T2 review. And then I saw it back in college when it came out. And that was it. So it's not, despite it being our namesake, if you will, it's not a movie I know that intimately. And I was surprised all over again, the extent to which McGregor's character verbalizes it. And we see how pleasurable that hit of heroin is. Because even in 96, I had seen movies that had depicted characters who had taken it, who needed a fix. And it was always depicted as something that was just necessary and turned them into, and I'm going to come back to this, had turned them into effectively a zombie, right? Just kind of knocked them out.
The craving. Yeah. Emphasize the craving.
It was something their body needed.
Yeah.
And if they didn't get it, they were going to be sick. And that is all true. And we see that in this movie as well, right? But as Renton says in his narration, if we don't understand why, you said it, if we don't understand why they would be drawn to it in the first place, then this movie doesn't work at all. If we don't understand how it feels, then we're not going to go on this journey with these characters. We're not going to understand why they're going to choose this instead of, like everyone else, all the wankers. It'd be so much easier to choose life. We have to see it. And that first scene where we really do watch all of these characters at Mother Superior's get their fix. You see it just in the way Spud's body reacts to it, right? That they're having fun. There is pleasure there. That did seem like a bold choice. And even to me at the time, and it feels bold now.
And I think there's also a technique they employ besides showing the allure and the experience. They show, once these characters have had that, the absence of it, which is also key to our understanding, because then we know it's not just that they're chasing something, they're running away from something. What does Renton say early on when he decides, he's going to kick it again? And then he goes to meet, I think, Sick Boy, and the voiceover says something like, the horror of having to meet my friends in full consciousness. And something like that makes us realize, this should be one of the pleasurable parts of your life, is hanging out with your mates. But now he's reached a point where if he has to do that sober, it sounds like hell to him. Or think about, and here's where technique comes into play. This is, I think, after the second time he's given it up for a while, and he's at bingo night with his mom in a pub, sitting at a table. And Boyle employs fast motion photography to show everyone around him is having a fun time. They're gathering, they're social, and he's sober, and it's hell. He's the one sitting at the table where slow motion, it's not, he's just still, and everyone else is moving around. So that's just another approach they use. It's like, it's the absence. Once they've had us experience the thrill through the filmmaking, then Boyle gives us moments of the absence of it through voiceover and through fast motion. And we come to understand their experience in a different way.
You're exactly right. Regular life, everyday life can never match that high, right? Yeah. That they're always chasing. That all said, not that it matters, but if I was ranking them, I might go just opposite of you, Josh, and say actually the 90-minute Blood Pact I think is even more important. I think Boyle, Hodge, and McDonald were really smart. I think Trainspotting could be a longer film. I don't know what the max would be, and I don't need to speculate. I think it could be a longer film and still be very memorable, still be one that we're talking about 30 years later. But I'll posit that for every minute over 90 that it got, the returns would diminish proportionally. I don't have to care about characters. I say this all the time. I don't have to like them. I don't have to find them sympathetic. I don't think that Renton is very sympathetic, and he's the most sympathetic of the lot. All that matters is, are they interesting? Are they interesting dramatically? And these characters, yes, even Renton, are interesting for just about 90 minutes. I think he and they as a group are a sufficient vessel to hang the movie's central provocation around, the central provocative idea around, and maybe that's it. And the question, am I invested enough that when, let's say, Begbie, when he shows up in London, I'm thinking the same exact thing that Renton is. Oh no. Yeah, I am. And am I thinking about the consequences for Renton of sliding back into addiction when he has to sample the heroin? Well, he only has to sample it once, but he's going to make sure that he gets that second, that final. There's final hits, he says, and then there's final, right? Yes, I'm thinking about that. So I'm invested enough in the character. That's all you need. I don't know that there's more depth than that. Even with the 90-minute restriction, the movie kind of runs out of steam. You know, it needs something like this shallow grave-like conventional ending where we get the crime factor right, and a betrayal and a bag of money. That's what kind of signals it for me.
I would argue, and maybe we should praise it before we get to nitpicking, but I would argue there's even sections of this movie that could be cut and we could get it to 83 or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. But I'll say directly connected to that, something else that stood out to me more this time. And I say it's connected to the runtime because these types of films are usually shorter. This is something that I think everyone listening is probably aware of. I don't think it's at all breaking news, but it's something that maybe when I have watched it previously, I didn't fully grasp. And when I think about it in my mind, when I think about Trainspotting, the space it occupies sort of in my consciousness, I don't think about it this way. And this time I got it. This is a comedy. Trainspotting's a comedy.
Sure.
I think about it though, Josh. I think about it in terms of shooting up. And I think about it in terms of griminess and dead babies and the worst toilet in Scotland. And let's be clear, that's all there. And in fact, the worst toilet in Scotland, to the credit of Boyle and his crew, the production designer, everybody involved, you feel like you can smell that toilet coming off the screen. It's that bad slash good, right? The soundtrack and the posters may have that upbeat neon feel to them, but that's not the experience of the movie itself. Maybe the overall energy of it, the forward motion of it, the propulsion, as we've said, but it's not really how the movie feels. It's not how the movie looks. It all weighs so heavily in my mind. And I watch it this time and I realize how often it's going for jokes, and some of them don't land. You mentioned scenes that maybe could be cut. I wonder if you're thinking about a scene like when Spud wakes up at his girlfriend's house and we get the scatological humor of the sheets and spraying all over the room. That's a joke that isn't necessarily all that funny, but many of the jokes, Josh, do land. I'm going to say the entire bit around the videotape and the cross-cutting during the sex scenes, right? And Renton saying, I haven't felt that good since Archie Gemmill scored against Holland in 1978 is inspired. That's really good. And another part, and this will open up maybe a conversation about the larger themes of the movie, it's not subtle. This is where you can tell that Boyle and Hodge are going for more comedy. When Renton in his voiceover is early on is talking about trying to go straight or thinking about it, but he's explaining this allure, why he has made the choices that he has made, right? Remember, I think he has said maybe to Begbie at this point that he's going to kick it. And what does Begbie say? He's like, it's about time. You got to get off that poison. And what does Boyle show? Begbie taking a drink immediately as he says, you got to kick that poison. And then he cuts to the dad. These are hard comedic cuts. Cut to the dad saying, or Tommy, actually, it's Tommy next. And Tommy says, yeah, that's something like that stuff's terrible for you, as he takes a hit off a cigarette, right? So they're just using bad substances too, while giving him grief for the substance he's taking. And then the next cut is to his father sitting at the table, and the dad is giving Renton, his son, grief for wasting his life. And the implication is, well, Dad, all you do is sit at this table or sit in this chair every day, right? And stare at the TV. you've made those other choices, but all you're doing is really wasting your life. The movie's pointing out the hypocrisy of people like his dad, but also all of his friends. He also notes in there that his mother has just found more socially acceptable ways to be a drug addict. They all have, right? Again, showcasing that hypocrisy. But those are jokes, that they're trying to make us laugh with the script and also the visual matching.
Yeah, and it's the pacing establishes it as a comedy, a very dark comedy, obviously, as is clear from what we've been discussing. But that's in the opening voiceover as well. It's a snarky, sardonic, trying to expose these hypocrisies. Renton's whole voiceover about choosing life is exactly setting that sort of, sardonic balloon popping tone.
Mm-hmm.
And, to that end, I want to talk a little bit about McGregor's performance, because it's interesting. You said he's not sympathetic, but maybe the most sympathetic. I came away so impressed by McGregor's commitment to being a ghoul here, especially, someone early on in his career. If someone's being mercenary about it and strategic, might want to, especially someone with the charm magnitude that McGregor has, might want to maybe lace a little more of that charm into the part, maybe get the audience a little more on his side, for future projects or something like that. I don't think McGregor does that at all. There's charm there because Renton it's naturally part of who the character is, right? It's not something that I feel McGregor trying to dial up to gain any sympathy. When he says, I choose not to choose life, it's, you talk about audiences, Adam, for a movie that broke out this big, it's kind of needling that audience, right? It's basically saying he addresses the audience. It doesn't, he addresses us at the very end, right? When we return to the choose life speech, and he's basically needling the squares. He's needling you and me and saying, I choose something other than what you've chosen. And the commitment McGregor brings to that choice, the gaze he has in the quiet moments as Renton, that's when I think of him as a ghoul. Or a step worse beyond that, there are times in this movie, especially that montage when they're talking about having to, petty crime to scrounge up their money, he comes across as a straight up predator, right? He's out there and he's coming after you to get what he needs to get his next fix. So I do think it's in the performance overall, but I think the voiceover and the delivery of it is just crucial. It's so blisteringly honest. He doesn't give an F what we think about him. I also thought it was curious how he refers to himself as Renton a number of times.
I was going to say the third person, the fact that he slips in at times to the third person tells you that he has a sense of his own grandiosity, which also makes him less sympathetic.
Yeah, I think it's part of that. I think it's also, this is a story about storytelling. How many times do we hear characters telling stories and then we'll get the visual flashback to that? So to your point, the grandiosity, Renton sees himself as a character in this story. I also think it indicates that he's lost himself in a sense, like this experience and becoming an addict. He's been separated from his true self. And I think using the third person reflects that as well. Just to go back to giving, McGregor credit, not just with the voiceover, but his acting, his face, that moment, which is the least comedic moment in the film. They realize that the baby has died. His face when he delivers, and this is voiceover, I wish I could think of something to say, something human. But then if you look at McGregor's face, it's not only the line, but it's the ghoul is gone there. And there's a flicker of the human who wants to come out, but because of his addiction, it can't. So I think it's the performance I was just more impressed by than ever, maybe, on this watch.
I had the same reaction. I was never so focused on how good McGregor was. And that's because of actually the range of the performance, despite the fact, right? Because there is a lot of emotion on display in this character. He does give us a full range of a character, despite the fact that there is so little in terms of humanity in Renton.
Yeah,
you're exactly right. Ghoul's a good way to put it, but it is almost like he's a shark-like character. Those
Yeah.
eyes even match it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when you think about him when he looks at Kelly MacDonald in the club, and there's some great filmmaking there, which would almost be like a moment out of a movie when two star-crossed lovers see each other in a romantic comedy, even, or a drama. The way he isolates. The way he isolates Renton there in the middle of the dance floor and has him looking at her and the lights just on him. It could be romantic, except it's not romantic at all, because there's something almost menacing about the way he's looking at her. He only sees her as an object, sort of like drugs in this case. The potential for sex is replacing what he would normally get, the high of drugs. And so there is something about just, I think you said it, a predator. There is something in his face. And you're right, McGregor doesn't shy away from any of that. I think when I was suggesting too that the script isn't interested in making him sympathetic, and McGregor then doesn't try to compensate for that. Think about moments like, and these both involve Tommy. There's the whole bit with Tommy and is it Vicky, Tommy's girlfriend, who leaves him, and that precipitates, or maybe precipitate isn't strong enough word, that really causes the spiral for Tommy. Now, Tommy does say, and here I kind of wish the script didn't do this. The script says, well, it was Iggy Pop and it was other things, and we hear earlier that, Tommy's not the perfect boyfriend. So of course it wasn't just one thing, but certainly we get the idea that misplacing the sex tape was the serious rift that led to her leaving him, right?
To go back to Renton, let's blame Renton is the reason. It's Renton's
This is where
fault.
I'm going. Yeah,
okay,
this is where I'm going, Josh. So
I agree.
Where I'm going with this is the reason why Tommy is now depressed and unstable, and he then right after this decides it's time to take a hit, right?
Yeah.
And he ends up maybe the most miserable of all. No, he does end up the most miserable in the worst state of all the characters. At no point do we see Renton go, when he knows that he's in a desperate state, even before that it's about the tape. At no point does he say, well, I took the tape, I have it, right? He has no interest in stepping up and saying that I was the cause of that. Maybe you could get her back. I can give you the tape back. Let's mend it. He has no interest in doing that. And even at the end, when he's at the funeral and the guy is sitting there telling him how awful it was and the state he ended up in, there's no sense that Renton is actually ever being introspective about it, that he's processing really any of this, that he really cares. Of course he does on some level care. We understand that Tommy was a mate, that he wishes Tommy was alive. It doesn't feel like there's that much more depth than that, though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The only gesture that comes anywhere near something like that is the scene where he does go visit Tommy, who at this point is on death's door. His apartment is squalid. And I sensed some ambivalence to, why was he even there? Because you could also see a Renton who just never visited him again, right? That would have been in character as well.
Yes.
So there's some gesture being made, but to your point, he doesn't take that occasion to really have any sort of heart-to-heart, let alone acknowledge his role in Tommy's downward spiral. It's the tragedy of Tommy. I think it's the most tragic narrative in the movie, actually, because we see a guy who, wasn't a saint, but he had not yet become an addict or as far as we know, tried heroin and
I think that's the suggestion.
He had chosen, and we should say Kevin McKidd plays Tommy. He had chosen a variation of the life that was square, and it seemed to be working for him. He seemed to go back to this sense of Renton being split and outside of himself. Tommy at least seemed to know who he was in his choices and had been a whole, if imperfect, human.
Yes.
And that's the guy who ends up dead. It is like the tragedy of the film, I think.
I agree. I know that there are so many moments that we could sit here and talk through in terms of the filmmaking and all the tricks that Boyle employs. But actually what I want to talk about, Josh, what stood out to me this time, and maybe it stood out to me so much because, I was working on the graphics that we're going to post on the show page and that are going to go with the podcast when we post it. But of course, when you think about the poster for the show and you think about the art that accompanied the movie, part of the branding of this movie, it's that orange and it's the green and it's the purple. It's these super vibrant colors. Because of that is what you associate the movie with. And of course, when you watch the film, it is actually so much grimier and so much more squalid than you would imagine based on that. It is almost like it was intentionally the opposite, to try to mislead you into thinking that the film was going to be something that it really isn't. But what I noticed this time, and someone can write in, email us feedback@filmspotting.net if you can point out other scenes in the movie where Boyle does this, and I missed them. There probably are. But what stood out to me, Josh, is that those colors weren't just randomly chosen, for the movie poster to be these glowing colors that would get our attention. There's a scene maybe a third of the way through the movie, I don't know, halfway through, where Renton is walking by an apartment complex, a set of flats, and it's still very gray and very dingy, like the film as a whole looks. There's nothing about this set of flats that would say this is a glamorous lifestyle. And yet the doors, or maybe it's the curtains, it's either the doors or the curtains. I'd have to get the scene back out. One of them's purple, one of them's green, one of them's orange. I think there's a blue. It's like Boyle still finds a way to inject some color and some life and some vibrancy even into a shot and a scene, a moment like that. And then what about where he then revisits that exact use of color is at the end when they're in the hotel room and they're doing the crime scene. They're doing not the crime scene. They're doing the exchange, right? Mm-hmm. The drugs for money. Some of the different characters there in the scene, like the guy who stays in the room with them when the other guys take the drugs away, right? He's wearing the purple shirt, and someone else is wearing like an orange shirt and the green shirt. So he's still being playful and being clever with those colors, and finding ways to have some symmetry between the scenes. But that's where he's injecting the color into these otherwise like kind of squalid and, these moments that are not, I don't know what the right word is to describe a moment, like an exchange, like a drug exchange like that, but it's not the typical type of moment we might expect just based on certainly the marketing materials.
Yeah. And it's also an aesthetic reflection of the thematic quality we were talking about at the start, vibrancy. You said,
yes,
you need, just as we said, you need the vibrancy of that experience of the high to also make you fully understand the low that we'll get to. And so in some of these frames and the use of such colors, you're getting both in the composition at once.
Right.
And, I consider orange, green, purple, those can be, depending on how they're used, the hue, the pigmentation, those can be nauseous colors. And I think that's kind of in the combination with these squalid settings. That's kind of how they're employed here. Let me give you my quick, maybe my nitpick, and maybe it deserves a bigger qualifier than that. Well, first of all, you're right about the scatological scene with Spud, Ewan Bremmer's, the morning after with his sheets. I mean, that's just like the most disgusting toilet in Scotland. Works perfect. We need that sure. Scene with Spud and next morning. Okay, you're pushing it a little too far. I didn't need that. But you know what? I don't know that we needed Kelly MacDonald's Diane at all. And this is no fault of Kelly MacDonald, who I think is,
very talented,
does fine work here and has shown to do incredible work, like No Country, right? She's like,
right. Yeah,
maybe one of the best scenes in No Country for Old Men, and other films. I don't know why Diane needs to be underage here. And I haven't read the Irving Welsh novel. Maybe it's there and they're just transferring, narrative details. It just maybe you could argue, Debbie and I were talking about this after watching it. Like she said, maybe it's supposed to be like another bad choice that Renton makes, right? And
other transgressions, right?
Transgressions,
deviations from the norm.
You could justify it that way. I think just like it's especially in my head. Just last week, we had to address this because our Diane Keaton top 5, brings in Woody Allen. So the underage thing, you have to acknowledge we're swimming in the Epstein shit still. And it's just like, I put in a movie like this and I'm just like, why is this everywhere? What's wrong with us as human beings that we even casually in a movie like Trainspotting have to have that. So I don't know, maybe someone more familiar with the novel, can fill me in on something I'm missing, but.
Well, I was just going to say, taking out the distasteful part of it, honestly, there's just the dramatic element again. It feels like that character is introduced and could potentially be, I suppose, Josh, an interesting character, someone to play off of Renton, but then she just disappears until she shows up
too.
Near the end of the film. If any character seems like someone who gets sacrificed because of the 90-minute runtime, it might be that character. I don't know because I haven't seen those deleted scenes, but I wonder if there are some good scenes involving Kelly Macdonald's character that were left on the cutting room floor because I don't know why otherwise that character really is in the film. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do.
Back to the positive and back to the techniques and the aesthetic choices. Part of the reason this movie moves like it does, obviously, is because of the editing. So the editor on the film, Masahiro Hirakubo, looks like did TV before, working on Boyle's Shallow Grave, and then also worked on The Beach with Boyle. That's why that opening sequence you called out works, the chase and bringing us through this headlong experience of what life is like for these guys when they're high. Is that where there's the fast edits of the sucking down the milkshake? I just think of that as like, it's a little detail, but like the multiple cuts for that one action is like, that's Trainspotting, right? That is capturing how this movie moves. But even things like, remember when Spud is interviewing for the tourist job or whatever it is?
Yeah. And there's had too much speed.
Yeah. So he's sped up. And then we just get nice touches where there's an establishing shot essentially of him in this big room from far away, turquoise rug, another potentially nauseous color.
Right.
And while he's talking, we cut to a medium shot of him. Like we're suddenly up on him and then we're back away and stuff like that. And another cut that I love, this is where Renton, I think it might be after the bingo night. He goes out back. No, I think it's after Tommy's funeral. At any rate, he's clean. He's balancing on top of a cinder block wall and he decides he's going to go for a hit. Jumps up off the wall, cut to him Spider-Man style landing in the middle of Mother Superior's flat.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's the sort of stuff
that's
we're talking about.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what we think of. We think of those kind of magical realist moments that the editing provides. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And that reminds me too, as you brought up the turquoise, we see pink, for example, in the moment where Tommy's telling the story of what really happened with Begbie playing pool. He's lifting weights. Talk about the degradation, the de-evolution of Tommy as a character, as a man. Also obviously corresponds with his apartment. And when he's lifting weights, like his flat it's pink behind him, it has this more feminine sort of touch, right? As he has this woman in his life and that all fades. So that's that injection of color again, that's there. And that completely dissipates as his life gets worse and worse. The thing that inspired my question that I set up in the intro, Josh, something I thought about, and here again, maybe this is really obvious, but I was thinking about this movie as a generational movie. Just the fact that we were the age that in theory, this movie should have exactly appealed to, right? And I'm going to throw this out there and see what you think about it. Also, as I had the thought, as it occurred to me that it really is more than anything, I think, a comedy. My thought is this, that Trainspotting is to Gen X what The Graduate was to baby boomers, including the indelible soundtrack. Choose Life replaces plastics and heroin replaces sex. Benjamin Braddock, he had the California sun and he had a swimming pool and he had Mrs. Robinson to numb himself with, right? Because he didn't know what choices to make. He was overwhelmed by now having to become an adult, by having to leave college and go out into the world and not know what he should be, right? So he numbs himself with sex. And you have a guy, you have the friend of his dad famously telling him at the party, plastics is the way to go, because it will make him rich. And of course, if it makes you rich or if it makes you money, that will be the key to happiness. And Trainspotting just updates that for our generation. And instead of plastics, it's choose life. Think about how many things in that monologue are consumer related. Almost all of it. Television, washing machines, cars, compact disc players, tin openers, mortgage payments, starter home, 3-piece suit, right? You could go on and on. It's all about what you buy. The fear seems to be ultimately, more than anything, that adulthood equals consumerism, right? And that you're just going to fall into whatever that rut, whatever that routine is. And that's what he's trying to avoid. And that's really the key. That's the key to the character, is not only are you choosing heroin because it makes you feel really, really, really good, but as Renton says at one point in the narration, it's just another type of full-time job, which is hard, but at least there's only one choice to make. That choice is every day I just have to do whatever I have to do to get the next fix. When you choose life, you have to choose all those other things. There's so many more decisions. It's overwhelming. Who wants to make all those decisions? It's so much easier to just make one decision, right? And that's what that character has to do. So I was thinking about The Graduate a lot as I was watching this film, but I'll throw one last thing at you too that is a little more out there. Is it possible that we should think about this movie, Trainspotting, as Danny Boyle's first zombie movie? Before
that's
28 days later.
Yeah, that's connected to the, Renton as a ghoul for sure.
The ghoul part, absolutely. But, I think that's a great way to look at it. But if you think about adulthood equaling consumerism, that's the allegory that we have often seen zombies representing, right? In horror films.
Yeah.
And you can be the zombie who makes all of those choices, right? Because they're not really choices at all. They're predetermined. They're inevitable for you. Or what? You can be the junkie who shoots up and you basically go into a comatose state. You're completely non-functional. You're a different kind of zombie.
Almost the one-to-one, the film that picked up that idea and is even more of a comedy is Shaun of the Dead, which almost literalizes that idea, right? Where the consumers are the zombies. And of course, Dawn of the Dead did that in pure horror form a lot earlier. So yeah, I like the zombie connection. You mentioned with The Graduate, the soundtrack, I do have to say it definitely works for the movie, but Trainspotting's soundtrack, I should say, because The Graduate soundtrack does not work this way. It's more wallpaper than I remembered. Right. I thought it was more, we were talking about that with our poll about the best 90s soundtrack and the distinction between wallpaper soundtracks and those that are integrated into the actual scenes and how they're working as a scene. I got to say, and it's just a choice. It's a different way to use music. It is more wallpaper here than I thought in terms of how Boyle employed it. Before we go, Adam, I gotta report back on, this is Scottish film set in Edinburgh.
And
supposedly.
You went there. Yeah. What did you learn
over the weekend?
What can you tell us?
Well, first of all, and doing some research
find the
ahead
worst
of time,
toilet? And you didn't walk in some terrible tourist gear to some pub and go, "Hi, can I use your bathroom?" You look
Adam,
okay.
I think I was there for almost 12 hours and I held it the whole time so I would not encounter that toilet.
Good. Okay.
No,
yeah.
That's not entirely true,
but where?
I was worried about it. So yeah, research shows, of course, mostly this was shot in Glasgow, but set in Edinburgh, and they make use of some crucial locations to kind of get that feel, mostly in that opening chase sequence, actually. So I was down there, wanted to track a few of these down. I have to thank Micah Rickard, a Filmspotting listener. He's pursuing a master's degree here in Scotland as well. A critic, and I had the pleasure to edit some of his stuff back at Think Christian. So Micah and I kind of scouted this out. And we did find from that opening chase, the first is obvious. When they're running down the shopping street, that's Princess Street, which is like a major kind of tourist shopping street. So that's obvious, not all that distinct. But there is the stairway that Renton comes flying down just before the tunnel that he runs under. Or I don't know if he makes it. I think it's actually Spud who's making it through the tunnel where Renton gets hit by the car.
Gets hit by the car and then is tackled. Yeah.
Yeah, that's leading to Waverley Station. So I got an Instagram photo of myself standing there by that tunnel. It's on my Instagram, Larson on Film, if people want to check it out. And yeah, I think Boyle and the location scouts, they do a good job of capturing some of those distinct bridges, tunnels, stairways of Edinburgh. My only complaint, as I'm going to call myself a pseudo local about Trainspotting as a Scottish film, not enough rain in this movie, Adam.
No.
Does it rain at all?
I don't remember seeing it.
It's been raining since January too. So they should have had at least a few scenes to really make it authentic, to my mind, at least.
Okay, fair enough. Trainspotting, it seems, didn't learn this until a couple days before we had to watch it. Really difficult to find.
Yeah.
Streaming or VOD, at least in the United States. Hopefully, if you're listening from somewhere else in the world, you had a little bit of an easier time finding it. And you could, of course, just stick with the soundtrack in your memories. We recommend skipping the heroine. We would love to hear your thoughts about the movie if you did have a chance to revisit it or not. Maybe it is so just imprinted on your brain, whatever previous experience you had with it. Feedback at filmspotting.net.
Adam, we like to take some time to thank our Filmspotting family members here on the show. We even more like to thank our Filmspotting advisory board members, those top of the tier folks who help us make decisions about the show. And so let's thank Evelyn from Manhattan, New York, for supporting the show. Evelyn is on Letterboxd. If you'd like to follow her there, you can look for Sofull76, Sofull 76. Evelyn shared this with us. I had just seen Joss Whedon's Serenity. I was looking for podcasts that reviewed it and found Filmspotting. I liked it so much, I went back to listen to all the older episodes when it was called Cinecast, if my memory serves. So yes, I've been listening for 20 years, and it seemed time, as they say, to pay the piper, but mostly to say thank you for helping me keep my cinephilia alive.
Yeah, I am blanking on what episode that was, but I want to say that's a Cinecast 20 episode. Yeah, it's going way back. A favorite show segment. This might be a bit self-serving, but I never write into podcasts, but I've been moved a few times to write to Filmspotting when the subject is exactly my speed. And each time I was lucky enough to get my emails read. First and probably most infamously for the old school fans, the Lake House. I wrote the email instigating the entire discussion. Who knew it would get so heated? It was also the first time I felt truly connected to the Filmspotting family. Thanks, Adam, for being on my side. Well, thank you. And runner-up, years later, the Judy Garland Best Scenes episode. Being a hardcore Judy fan, I had to write in about my favorite scene, the camera dip in summer stock with Gene Kelly. Apparently, I wrote in at the exact right time and swayed Adam's choice to include that exact scene. Listening to it being discussed and having Michael Phillips agree with the choice, a forever highlight. I did go back, Josh, and I found that exchange, and I was debating between two scenes, like the day before we recorded. That was one of them, and so she clinched it. There is something deeply touching about how Filmspotting reads and engages with their listeners. While I've never spoken to Adam, Josh, or Sam, or been able to attend the events, I've always felt a part of this community, and in times like this, making the choice to actively join the community felt like a true necessity. Thank you so much for your work for all these years.
Evelyn also shared a random film or filmmaker that she loves. Linklater and Wong Kar-wai are all-time faves, but I'd like to highlight 1943's The More the Merrier, as it's such an unknown classic, and I want more people to watch it. Unknown to me, Evelyn. So yeah, we'll have to track that down. Sam put a note here that The More the Merrier, a housing shortage romantic comedy directed by George Stevens, and it stars Jean Arthur and Joel McCrea.
Hmm.
The movie that Evelyn credits with becoming a cinephile, Vertigo. When I was 8 years old, my dad had it on and I watched it with him and my very soul was rocked. I remembered it and didn't see it again until I was a teenager, and it lived up to my memory.
You know, while we're talking, I'm looking this up briefly to try to see if I can find a date because, well, it says February 2025. Maybe this was before. Yeah, it was in fact, Josh, because I'm reading this and I'm going, wait a second, I've met Evelyn. So this intake form came in before I had a chance to meet Evelyn, which was actually like last July when I went out with Sarah. We went out to New York City and saw the Jake Gyllenhaal and Denzel Washington Othello. Met up with some of our trivia spotting mafia, our New York listeners out there. Evelyn joined us for a drink. So I just did want to throw that in there. I'm like, I know Evelyn. So this came in just before that, actually. But we continue with Evelyn's thoughts. She has a few more. She says, a favorite book about movies or movie making, 5 Came Back by Mark Harris. And that is a good one. I like all of Mark Harris's stuff. We thank Evelyn for being an advisory board member and for all of her years of listening. In addition to keeping us doing what we're doing, membership comes with perks. You get to listen early and ad-free. You get our weekly newsletter. You get exclusive opportunities like being part of the Filmspotting Family Discord. Heck, when I visit your town, maybe you even get to meet up with me and have a drink. That's an exclusive opportunity, isn't it, Josh? Well, you don't actually have to be a family member for that, but I shouldn't say that.
That's true.
Right? Okay. And you get monthly bonus shows. Our February bonus, as we're taping this, we still have 2 days left in the voting, and it's pretty close, but we have 4 1940s movies, all pretty well regarded, that are vying for that blind spotting spot. We are only going to pick one, and that film is going to be the one that me, you, and producer Sam discuss on a bonus episode. It might be Kurosawa. Drunken Angel is a Kurosawa that somehow the three of us haven't seen. Could be that, could be something else. More information about joining the Filmspotting family is available at filmspottingfamily.com. And you can also rate us over at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really does help us reach new listeners. Next week on the show, Josh, we're going to be leaving drug-addled 90s era Edinburgh for the wild, windy, and apparently quite lusty moors of northern England. Are you ready for that?
Oh boy, sure.
Wuthering Heights, quote unquote, is here. We'll see if we're ready for the discourse on that. Joining us to be part of our discourse is going to be Mariah Gates. We'll talk Emerald Fennell and Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, and we'll also talk a little bit about her book that came out last year, Cinema Her Way. That'll be fun.
I can't wait to do that. I think we were hoping to have Mariah on last year, and it didn't work out. But yeah, we'll touch on the book, which is great, which I enjoyed, and this movie, which people seem to be interested in. Adam, from what I can tell, I've been avoiding as much as I can. Here's where I'm at, is just kind of scrolling Letterboxd, trying to avoid the reactions. What I've been able to perceive is that, and maybe I'm wrong on this, they seem to be kind of all over the place. So, which I love. I like to know that, because then I have nothing going in. I can feel like I'm at somewhat of a blank slate.
Okay. I truthfully haven't even seen that. I have not been on Letterboxd much over the past week, unfortunately. Everything I know is what Sam has put on this document in front of the two of us. He is telling us that Mariah, it seems, is positive based on her Letterboxd blurb, but I don't have that in front of us. And then we have Allison Wilmore. We have our friend Allison, and this is her Letterboxd blurb. And I guess this sort of sums up maybe what you're saying, Josh. Wuthering Heights is Fennell's dumbest movie. And I say that with all admiration, because it also happens to be her best to date. Well, I mean, that kind of seems all over the place.
I can hear Allison saying that, for one thing, which I love. And yeah, I think it's fair game at this point. Okay. So let's keep our blinders on, go see it, and we'll join Mariah to discuss.
I'm down. Also next week, Pantheon review number 1. What will that be? Well, you'll find out in just a bit. And poll results, we're asking you to choose life. Choose a 90s movie soundtrack this was a fun one, and it will be fun to reveal the results next week here on the show. Vote and leave a comment at filmspotting.net.
Adam, I want to put out one more call for a potential Copenhagen meetup. Haven't got any bites yet. I don't know how many listeners we have in the Copenhagen area, but I am going to be there the first week of March and would love to spend a night hanging out with any listeners who are nearby. So yeah, email us feedback@filmspotting.net or find me on social, Larson on Film, Larson with an E. I'm on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. And let me know if you're in or near Copenhagen around the first week of March. We'll get together. Also wanted to share a quick note about our sister podcast, The Next Picture Show, looking at cinema's present via its past. They are offering part 2 of their Both Sides of the Aisle pairing, ISLE. So they are on to discussing Sam Raimi's Send Help. Previously, they talked about Lena Wertmüller's Swept Away from 1974. So a lot of comparisons between those two films will be part of this most recent episode on Send Help. You can find new episodes of The Next Picture Show every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, deep breath, because it's time now for Massacre Theatre. This is where Adam and I perform a scene. You get a chance to win a film spotting prize. Last time we massacred this scene. Léa Seydoux and Benicio del Toro in 2021's The French Dispatch, written and directed by Wes Anderson. Our massacre of that scene was part of our Oscar nominations reaction show, came a couple of weeks back. Also on that show, we did a Sacred Cow review of Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another. Yes, a Sacred Cow review of a 2025 film.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. We're proud of it. There's always a tie-in to Massacre Theatre. So why that scene from The French Dispatch?
Here's Mark Chorney in Portland, Oregon. Although the scene didn't sound familiar to me, I'm going to take a guess based on clues from the episode. The French Dispatch? I'm thinking this because the character of the dialogue sounded Andersonian, Wes that is. I only saw this once when it was released, but I seem to remember one of the narratives being about French student revolutionaries, which connects to One Battle. Del Toro stars in both films. They're both directed by Andersons. 2026 Best Actor frontrunner Timothy Chalamet is in The French Dispatch, and he says, to sign off, Josh, long live Massacre Theatre.
Wow. We're really getting the write-in vote on Massacre Theatre, Adam.
Yeah,
I hope
dig
you're
it.
taking note. Here's good old Tori Lightcap from Topeka, Kansas. The scene is from The French Dispatch, specifically the concrete masterpiece section, as Rosenthaler, played by Benicio del Toro, and Simone, played by Léa Seydoux, banter a bit before Rosenthaler proposes marriage. The superficial Benicio del Toro connection is immediate and obvious, but look deeper. In One Battle, in the clip you played, Bob says, freedom's a funny thing, isn't it? When you have it, you don't appreciate it, and when you miss it, it's gone. In French Dispatch, in the same segment, in fact, as Rosenthaler and Simone, the character of Berenson observes how women enjoy incarcerated men because, quote, something about the captivity of others enhances the experience of their own freedom, seemingly two sides of the same philosophical coin.
Did we look that deep, Josh?
Whew, holy, I don't know if anyone has
not.
ever looked that deep into a Massacre Theatre connection. Nice work, Tori.
Here's Danny Hensel. Offending the French, which I think I did, and this director is known for his precision, which I think I also said, made me think it would be this movie. And then the rhythm of the dialogue as performed really recalled Anderson's work.
Wow.
Did it, Danny? Did it?
I mean, that's either praise for us or an insult to Wes Anderson. I don't know which.
Exactly.
All right, here's Henry Kyneson in Maidstone, UK. Gentlemen, we don't come to your performances because they are Oscar or even brick-worthy. It's your daring, your nerve, your ability to jump into a tangle of foreign words with no prep. Where else do you get that? Bless you both.
Indeed. Where else do you get that? Finally, here's Botond from Budapest, Hungary. This was especially painful. Here's a counter to Henrik. This was especially painful to listen to, since that scene is probably in my top 5 Wes Anderson scenes of all time. It resonates with me so much.
You know what?
Do you have would you like to issue an apology to Botond?
I'm apologize to Botond, and yes, all Wes Anderson fans everywhere.
All Wes Anderson fans, everyone who's French. all of
cinema
Budapest.
fans everywhere.
Cinema fans, indeed. Okay, Josh, despite all the clues I gave and how Andersonian our banter apparently sounded, we didn't have a lot of entries.
What?
No,
Are you kidding
no, the
me?
hat it's not overflowing. What kind
This
of
is
hat would a Wes
dispiriting.
Anderson character wear?
Oh, come on. I mean, there's so many options.
I know.
There's not a signature hat.
What's twee? I know we need something twee.
No. Come on
reach
now.
into it and pick out this week's winner.
Robert Gibbons from Kaysville, Utah.
Congratulations, Robert. Email feedback@filmspotting.net and we will set you up with your very own Filmspotting t-shirt, tote bag, or trial membership to the Filmspotting family. We move on now to this week's edition of Massacre Theatre. And yes, Massacre Theatre, it's there in the title. It's always been about performing badly, about embarrassing ourselves. But producer Sam really seems like he's on a mission now, Josh.
He's on
it's
a roll.
really about just killing us.
He's definitely on a roll. That's why he's throwing accents our way. This time we both have to do accents. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in our Trainspotting review, I describe myself as a pseudo local, having lived here in Scotland for, months now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to offer you a
it
pseudo
rubbed off?
accent. A pseudo accent.
Oh,
Yes.
I can't wait. I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll
Well,
see.
This will be magical then.
Yeah. Okay. You started off. I'm going to give you the action. Are you ready?
Nope. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. And action.
You're muttering.
I don't mutter.
Ah, you do. You mutter, lass, when something's troubling you.
I blame you. Stubbornness. It's entirely from your side of the family.
Who? I take it the talk didn't go too well then.
I don't know what to do.
Speak to her, dear.
I do speak to her. She just doesn't listen.
Come on now. Pretend I'm Carla Jean. Speak to me. What you say?
Uka, I can't do this.
Sure you can. There. That's my queen. Right. Here you go. I don't want to get married. I want to stay single, let my hair blow in the wind as I ride through the glen, firing arrows into the sunset.
And scene.
Scene.
I don't
know
sound
what-
like that. That's a bad impression of me.
Sorry.
I don't
I feel
sound
good.
like
I
that.
feel good. I think we did well, Adam.
I think, yeah.
Don't worry about what comments are coming our way. Just feel this
Okay.
moment of pride and enjoy it.
Yeah. Of course, we did give you, I don't know, we maybe gave you a little bit of a clue. We had to throw you off the scent a little bit, though, by changing the name. So this movie does not actually have a Carla Jean in it, in case you were wondering. Didn't quite roll off the Scottish tongue, did it, Josh?
No, but another movie might have a character named
Okay.
Carla Jean.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's one or two. If you know what film we just massacred, email the movie's title, your name and location to feedback@filmspotting.net. Your deadline is Monday, February 23rd. We will select the winner randomly from all the correct entries and announce it on next week's show. The Filmspotting Pantheon, 50-something movies, including a couple of trilogies that have been deemed so amazing that we have enshrined them in our own movie Valhalla. And yes, there are some movies that you would expect would be there. Citizen Kane, the Godfather films, not The Godfather 3, but the other two. Jaws, some oddballs maybe, Midnight Run, very deserving, don't get me wrong. 2002's In America, probably deserving. We'll find out in 2027 when we talk about it for its 25th anniversary. They're all films that we love. And speaking of things we love, a person we love, producer Sam, the co-founder of Filmspotting, Sam Van Halgren, is here to participate in this crazy process that we invented last year, the Filmspotting Pantheon nomination.
I've got to remember this is the real
event.
show, not the bonus show. No
not
wild
bonus.
hot takes. Okay, I've just got to keep it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stay on track.
Well,
This is-
The
I mean,
family
you could-
knows you. The Filmspotting family knows you well, Sam, and bears with you.
Right.
The
I
general
can't.
public might
no.
not be ready for that.
Sam,
This is I'll be at 50%.
look,
50%
you
hot,
can
mild takes.
nominate. You can use your wild card slot on American Dreams. You can.
Actually,
can if you want.
just the Z
Or Temple
in
of
American
Doom.
Dreams. Temple of Doom. Oh,
You could.
You know what?
Okay.
You have my American Dream support, Sam, not my
I know
Temple
I
of
do.
Doom
I know.
support.
I was so
not
happy to
my
hear that.
Temple of Doom support.
Okay, so up until last year, getting into the Pantheon, it's been a very informal process. We really have been making it up as we go.
Yeah.
Last year, we decided, for better or worse, we're going to try to make it more formal. And the thing that's really driving all this, and Sam, this came from you, and obviously we agreed, is that it's important that these films ultimately get discussed.
Yeah.
Sure. The whole point of the Pantheon was we didn't want these films to keep coming up again and again in top 5 lists. That would be boring. But why have a Pantheon if people say, well, I've never even heard you talk about those films? Like,
Right.
we don't know what you think about them, how you feel about those movies. We want your thoughts on those films. So with that in mind, the goal has been to eventually knock out serious discussions, sacred cow type in-depth reviews, similar to what we did, hopefully, in the previous segment with Trainspotting, about every film that's in the Pantheon. And so that's why we've been doing these anniversary type titles with movies like Trainspotting that aren't in the Pantheon, but also other films that are. So setting that aside, we have also created this process for nominating other films. We each get to nominate 3. Currently, that process is simply, we each have to pick a film that has previously been given a Sacred Cow review. We also have to each nominate a film. We each have to pick a film that has been a marathon title. Now, that's tricky because, of course, Josh wasn't here for all the marathons, and we're trying to get Pantheon discussions that Josh and I have done. But some of those marathons were me and you, Sam.
This is
Some of them
absolutely going to come
were
up.
Maddie and I. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the
so,
course of this conversation.
that complicates it.
Yep.
Lastly, we have a wild card slot. It can be anything, any movie, but we do require, there has to be a little bit of a waiting period.
Yeah.
Just like in sports where you can't get in the first year after you retire. The film has to be at least 5 years old.
Yeah.
So,
And again, like, just to
with
set
all
the
of
table
that-
for anybody that's new, we've been doing this show for 20 years. You have. We started the show 20 years ago. There have been well over 50 marathons of 4 to 8 films. So we're talking about hundreds of films to choose from in the marathons category. Sacred Cows also include oeuvre reviews or whatever. I mean, there have been a number of different categories of films where we've visited, classic titles. So there are, again, hundreds of titles to choose from there. So lots of movies. Yeah.
Last year, after this whole process, this show, we nominated the 9. Then what we did is we took the 3 that have never been discussed, the 3 wildcard titles, and over the course of 3 shows, we discussed each one of those titles. So then we had 9 films that had all been discussed by myself and Josh. We put all those 9 titles up to be voted on between the 3 of us and also Filmspotting listeners, and ultimately the top 2 vote getters were inducted into the Pantheon. And you know what? I'm going to say it worked pretty well last year because the 2 titles that went in were Singin' in the Rain, which is one of those films we couldn't believe wasn't in the Pantheon to begin with.
Yeah.
At many occasions, we all 3 thought it was already in the Pantheon.
Exactly.
Right?
This is true.
And Sherlock Jr., which is our first silent film to get into the Pantheon. And that feels like something we
And Singin' in the Rain, the first
off.
Musical in the Pantheon.
That's true,
so,
right?
Oh, except for Wizard of Oz, I guess you got that. So.
Yeah, I suppose you can definitely count the Wizard of Oz. Here we are in 2026, year 2 of this process. And the only change that we've made, this is something I suggested. I think last year we just went in order, sort of, let's do our 3 sacred cows. Let's do the 3 marathons. Then let's do the 3 wild cards. Now, I suppose there's a little bit of gamesmanship, even though this isn't really a draft or a contest. Sam, you're going to get to start first, and you can go with whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah.
You can start wild card. You can start sacred cow. You can go marathon. Josh, you can follow that up with whatever category you want, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I didn't really think so much this time. I think I was aware of the fact with last year, with our first effort at this, that there could be some overlap, that we might be going for some of the same picks, just because, to your point, there were several titles we thought collectively or individually, I thought this was already in the Pantheon. So Singin' in the Rain, a great example. I wasn't so worried about that this time. I was more concerned, as I was last year, about like filling in some gaps. What's missing from the Pantheon? And so, you know who's not in the Filmspotting Pantheon is Akira Kurosawa. Not there.
That's nuts.
There's several filmmakers that surprise you when you actually take a close look, but I think Kurosawa for me is the biggest. And if it were me, I would say Seven Samurai. It's just the no-brainer, should be in the Pantheon. It's not your favorite. It's not in your top 5 Kurosawas, Adam.
It is not. So
I'm not going with Seven Samurai. Akira might be the second most obvious pick that people are thinking. I know you guys both love it. I love 3/4 of it. I don't love the last quarter of Akira, so I'm not going to nominate that. Which means, fellas, we're going back to school. We're going back to Film 101. It's probably, I would say probably many people's first Kurosawa. It certainly was mine. Many people encounter it in school if they take film. It's 50s Rashomon. And I'm not nominating this as my wild card, even though it has been a marathon subject before, but it predated Josh. It was part of a 2009, I think, Kurosawa marathon, Adam, that you did with Matty Ballgame, previous host. But this thing's been landing on top 5 lists since 2005. It made top 5 foreign language films back on episode number 37. Top 5 murder mysteries, episode 73. Top 5 movies about voyeurism, or watching. Episode 151, top 5 movies about memory, 171. And it was your favorite film in that marathon, Adam, back in 2009.
Sam, you're leaving out something important unless you're going to get there.
Oh, I'm going to get there. Just let me get through. Let me get there.
I'll let you get through.
Okay. So then we get to episode 400. Is this where you're wondering where I was going? Top 5 things we learned from the movies, Adam. Do you remember? You paired it with Memento.
Okay.
Will I lie to myself to be happy?
There you go.
A thing you learned from the movies, Rashomon. It was also a top 10 film of all time for you back in 2012.
That's where I was going. My first Sight and Sound list, I put Rashomon on.
Exactly. Where was it in 2022? It was gone, which is why I'm excited for it to get another look. I don't know when the last time you guys saw it. 2 years ago, Filmspotting Madness Best of the 50s. It made it all the way to the Sweet 16. This is a beloved film, not only best, or not an academically appreciated film, but a beloved film. It's a Pantheon-worthy movie. I rewatched it myself, and it really struck me that, we love Kurosawa for his Shakespeare adaptations. This felt like his Beckett to me. It was takes you to the very brink of existential despair, exhilarating, unnerving. Can't wait to hear film professor Adam, grad school Josh, dig into Rashomon, which, again, as my wild card, would be one of the 3 movies we'd revisit.
Yeah, it's astonishing Kurosawa isn't in the Pantheon, so we do need to correct that. And boy, Rashomon, I might not have seen. I forget how you described it, Sam, like the film school 101 or that's probably when I saw it. And unfairly, that's my memory of it. Is like it's starter Kurosawa.
Yep.
It's starter, non-English language film. It's like where you begin. And so now, having seen so much more of that, it'll be interesting to return to it and see what else is there. What did I miss? Like why maybe don't I hold it now in such high regard as something like Seven Samurai or Akira or some of these other Kurosawas? So yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah. Well argued, obviously. And I certainly noticed that Kurosawa was not on the list. I do think the Pantheon also needs more foreign language films. So checks 2 important boxes there. I think you probably made the right choice as well with Rashomon. I just looked at my Letterboxd list, and I do have that in my number 1 spot for Kurosawa. I thought it might be Ron, though. And I know you mentioned the Shakespeare adaptations. I thought it might be Ron, and I have Ron right behind it. But I'm not gonna quibble. I think it's a fantastic choice.
All right, let's see.
Josh,
all right, so
you're up.
I'm up, and I'm not sure which category to go to. Before we started recording here, Adam kind of hinted that maybe one of mine from last year was going to come back in the mix. And if that's going to happen, I want to pick it.
Yeah.
I want to pick it.
I tip my hand.
And I'm being lazy because I am repeating my Marathon and Sacred Cow picks. Full disclosure, time got a little tight, but I also really think these are two important films. I'm gonna go with the one that I think is perhaps a particularly film-spotting film. And I do like that quality of the Pantheon. We are trying to make this respectable by including musicals, silent films, and Kurosawa. Yes, I think that's an important task. And I'm glad this process is giving us a chance to do that. But we also don't want to just, mirror every greatest films of all time list, right?
Right. That's right.
Now, this one, I think, appears on a lot of those, but you don't hear it discussed as much. We discussed it, Adam, and loved it.
Mhm.
It's the best years of our lives.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought you were going somewhere else too, Josh.
I thought you were going
Oh,
somewhere
man.
else.
Okay.
Oh, crap. Now I'm not going to get that other one.
Poorly.
All right. Best picture in our William Wyler marathon.
Okay. Oh, great movie.
A
Great
great
movie.
movie. 3 returning
Yes.
World War II vets returning home in Middle America, and what that means for them. We pulled our best scene of that Wyler marathon from this as well, Adam. Looking at star ratings, 5 out of 5 for you, 4.5 out of 5. Sam, I didn't get a chance to look at where you've got this, because I do think consensus, when I'm thinking about what to nominate, consensus is important here. We want these films to be, obviously we may love them to different degrees, but sincerely appreciated by all of us. So I know you do like it, Sam. I'm not sure to what
I think
degree.
I'm looking at my 2024 is that when we watched the Wyler marathon, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did I write? Every scene, a cocktail of hope and heartbreak, masterful. Yeah, I loved it.
There you go. I don't need to say anything more than that. I just, I do think the one thing I'll add, I just do think this might be unique in the two Filmspotting, our level of love for the best years of our lives. So I want to throw that
great.
back in the mix.
Okay. So I have to look something up real quick. Can I look
Okay.
something up?
Yeah,
Because
go
this is
ahead,
going
go
to
ahead.
determine, this is definitely going to determine how I draft here, and whether or not I decide to throw a life raft to Josh or not. I have to decide whether or not this movie is eligible in 2 categories or not. And it is eligible in 2 categories. That
I
certainly
can pick
helps
something
you,
else
Josh.
too. I mean, to Sam's
That-
point, there's plenty of films to choose
Oh, there's
from.
so many. Yeah. And also you want,
Well,
we do
no,
have.
you know what?
Okay, go ahead.
No, here's the thing. I don't care who nominates it. I just want it nominated. So I'm going to let you nominate it. And I'm going to go with another movie that I want to nominate. Okay.
The more the merrier.
And so what I'm going to do is I am going to go with my marathon choice. And my marathon choice, this was one of the, I'm going to look at this real quick while we're talking too. I think it wasn't the first marathon that you were part of, Josh, but I was going to say it was one of the first, and it was in fact the second marathon that you were part of. And for me, still one of the most crucial, one of the most formative, and that marathon is contemporary Iranian cinema. I consider Iranian cinema to be a world cinema that is among my favorite now. I consider those filmmakers from, Farhadi and Makhmalbaf and, everyone that we have recently, Panahi, right? And I'm leaving out someone in particular for a reason, right? I consider these filmmakers to be among our most essential. And as I said to you, and most experimental, like most invigorating as a cinephile to watch. And I was only vaguely familiar with Iranian cinema prior to this marathon. That was the reason for it. The film Taste of Cherry was part of an earlier marathon that we did on the show with Maddie. It was a Cannes, Golden Palm marathon, films that had won the top title at Cannes that we hadn't seen. I think that was about it. And the movie that I believe was the first title in that marathon. And it actually, it didn't end up being, I think, Josh, it was your best picture, but for me, it was the movie that was my second best picture, but it's the film I'm going to nominate because I think it's the film that has the greatest legacy. It's a Criterion Collection edition. The filmmaker, I think, is the titan of Iranian cinema. And it also, when I talk about experimental, it crosses over into, it blurs lines in really interesting ways. The film is 1990s Close Up.
Yeah. And
the filmmaker is Abbas Kiarostami. For all those reasons, right? Because it's Kiarostami, because it's Iranian cinema, because it's a film in which, if you're not familiar with Close Up, this is the one sentence description. The film tells the story of the real life trial of a man who impersonated filmmaker Mohsen Makhmalbaf, conning a family into believing they would star in his new film. Like, that really happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the film tells the story of that. And it's shot like a doc, but it's sometimes shot like a narrative film. And there are parts of it that are fabricated, certainly, but they're the real participants and they're playing themselves. And it's a trip in the best way it can possibly be. And I think it's an important film. And for that reason, and again, because it's Iranian cinema and we need more international cinema in the Pantheon, Close Up is going to be my nomination.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, my best picture from the marathon, no argument from me. I think you make a good case for it as being representative as well. So if, how many chances might we have to nominate a title from this marathon? I think this is a good one to start with and has a good chance of getting in.
And also it's one of the great marathons. To your point, Adam,
I agree
that it's the kind of high from a marathon we chase. It's why we do marathons. It completely opens your mind up into what is possible with movie making, and it becomes a reference point. And hopefully, by putting Close Up on there, if it isn't on somebody's radar, it'll get them to go dive into that marathon, revisit, and take a look at all those films, which are terrific.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Good stuff.
You're up next, Sam.
Okay. I think I'm going to let this play out a little bit. I have a marathon pick, but also it could be a slot for something that was nominated last year that really deserves to be. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to go to my Sacred Cow, which was also a former marathon film. So last year I pointed out there are currently no documentaries in the Pantheon, which is especially unusual because you're both fans, but especially you, Adam. I pitched one last year, Herzog's Grizzly Man. It was a film we reviewed in the very first year of the film, so it felt right. Herzog was a huge discovery for us.
Yeah,
first year of the show. I'm sorry, 05.
Yeah.
Herzog, a huge discovery for us. It just felt right. It placed well out of contention in the Pantheon poll. Also, my revisit was underwhelming. I don't need to go into that. This is the kind of like bonus Sam I will not reveal to the general public. Grizzly Man,
I liked it even more.
Yeah, and so, I didn't. Anyway, so I'm trying again. We're back to we're back to documentaries. This is a film that's been reviewed twice on the show. First, as part of the Docs Marathon back in 06. It was Marathon number 8. Did I steal it? Oh, goody. Yes. I love it. It was part of our 7 from, should we say it in unison? 7 from 76 in 2021. Was this a blind spot for you, Josh? I wonder. I'm going to get there. Top 5s it's made. Top 5 Fight the Power movies back in 07.
Jerk.
It came up in your interview with Steve James and Alex Kotlowitz in 2011, top 5 documentaries.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about this. We did the top 5 movies that taught us empathy. I think that was a live show in October 2020. It was a bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
It
was a live show.
1976, Harlan County, USA. Barbara Koppel
was going to be my Sacred Cow choice.
Oh boy.
So I not only think the Pantheon needs a documentary, it also needs the two of you talking about a documentary. That documentaries, there is a way to talk about documentaries as not just as incredible documents, but to the point of Iranian film, which often incorporates metafiction or documentary. There is a way to talk about this, and you guys are very sophisticated at it. And so this is one, we've talked about a couple times. Documentaries will always have a hard time when put in the mix with some of these other heavy hitters like Close Up, like Rashomon, when we put a poll up to listeners, to family members. But I love this as a documentary pick belonging in the marathon, even more than Grizzly Man, far more than Grizzly Man. This is such a great film. I mean, a film that's also incredibly necessary right now. And as a film about resistance that is also itself an act of resistance. So timely film, worthy of Pantheon.
Just worth pointing out, I did fulfill, I suppose, a dream. I got to interview Barbara Koppel on the show at one point.
That's right.
So, yeah, Harlan County was definitely going to be my choice. But Sam, that
did not occur to me.
Only worked because I could have taken the movie Josh is going to say next, and it was gonna work out perfectly that I didn't, and I was going to take Harlan County. Whatever. Fine. Now I don't know what I'm going to do next. Just go ahead, Josh.
Right. Well, I'm going to be quick. So you better think fast, Adam, because I spent time, talking about this film on last year's show for the Pantheon. It is The Battle of Algiers, 1966. This is not what you were
Still
expecting.
Not where I thought you were going.
Nope, me neither.
Well, then you're safe. You're safe, Adam.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, no, I really want to throw back into the mix Gilo Pontecorvo's docudrama. This is set during the Algerian War of the 50s. France's occupying forces in the film are trying to root out this network of militant cells who are seeking Algerian independence. And we did this as Sacred Cow / Blind Spotting. So this is my Sacred Cow pick for these purposes. That show, we did our top 5 political resistance movies. So we're thinking along the same lines, Sam.
Yeah.
I wonder why a year later, I'm still thinking along these same lines.
Can't imagine.
But yeah, Adam, you 4.5 out of 5, me 5 out of 5. This one was just kind of like, as you were describing the Iranian cinema experience, Sam, for me, it was just the concept of docudrama, I guess, is like this in-between space of, real world political situation, recent political situation, documentary elements, but it is a drama. And the questions that technique then, allow the filmmakers to ask who is and who isn't a terrorist. What are extreme tactics? Are they ever justified? Increasingly relevant today. And it was last year, is now. So also, come on, significant shout out in one battle after another. So
of course,
yeah, exactly.
That was kind of like the topper for me. I was like, okay, I got to throw this in again. Also, this was interesting. So on that trip I mentioned in the Trainspotting review to Edinburgh over the weekend, we went and caught a movie. And just because we wanted to see a movie, because as I noted, it's raining all the time. And so we just picked something random playing at at Film House. Great film venue here in Edinburgh. And it was Claude Chabrol's The Butcher. So 1970 here. And a thriller set in a small French town that involves a butcher who returns after many years in the army. And that is incredibly interesting film. Very much could be read as a parable about France's involvement in Algeria. So this all circling in my head, and I just thought I've got to bring up The Battle of Algiers again. So that's going to be my Sacred Cow nomination.
I probably said this last year, but one of my favorite conversations that you guys had, really bringing a movie I found overwhelming in terms of its technique and subject matter, in a way I found impenetrable as critically, personally. I didn't have a way in. I was so in awe of it, and your conversation I found enlightening and just really impressive. So a great conversation for people to look up. And I'm just looking, I don't know if you considered how the family in particular voted in the past. And I was impressed by Battle of Algiers coming in 5th. So I'm glad you gave it another push, Josh, because, of course, Singing in the Rain and Sherlock Jr. ended up moving on. And we had Alien in there at number 2 with the family members.
Yes.
And then another title I think I might have to nominate unless you do, Adam, from last year.
It's coming.
So which, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought you might be going here, but yes, it makes sense that you would nominate Battle of Algiers, which I do think, I mean, obviously it's competing against different titles, so who knows where it will finish, but the one battle after another relevancy,
yes, that's right,
along with the real world relevancy, I think will change things for that film in this year's competition. But the movie I thought you were going to go with, Josh, and now it will work out nicely that I get to include this title. It was your wild card title last year, and then we discussed it, and so that makes it my sacred cow title this year. And just like we talked about last year, you laid it out very nicely. There needs to be an Agnes Varda film in our Pantheon, and while there are many choices, and we've done an Agnes Varda marathon, this film wasn't part of that marathon because we'd seen this film. But I think Cleo from 5 to 7 may be my favorite Agnes Varda film. And when we rewatched it, we swooned for this movie. I gave it 5 stars. This is a film that is very well known, especially in film school circles, which is where I watched it for the first time. Kind of like Rashomon, it's one of those movies because of its technical approach, its formal approach. It's a movie that is more or less real time. The main character, Cleo, played by Corinne Marchand, has 2 hours to wait. She's waiting for the results of a biopsy. It's life or death, right? That's what she's waiting for. And while she's wandering around, Paris waiting, she meets a soldier. Now, here's a connection to your last film, Josh. She meets a soldier on leave from the Algerian
That's
War.
right. Yep.
And here it has another connection to one of my favorite movies and trilogies of all time, the Before series, right? It feels very much of a piece with those films. Linklater was clearly influenced by this film in those conversations that this pair have as they walk around Paris. So it on its own deserves to be in the Pantheon. I think it's that good. The fact, of course, that it's an Agnes Varda film and the importance that she has to Filmspotting, I think makes it essential. And it did quite well last year.
Yeah, it did.
I don't
exactly.
know. I don't know. I thought about not saying this stuff because I mean, who cares?
I know.
You pointed it out,
right.
but I didn't want to sway things one way or another if that's even possible. But it really was looking, wasn't it, Sam, for a while like it was going to be Singing in the Rain and Cleo, not Sherlock Jr.
Yeah,
and at the last minute, Sherlock Jr. just beat Cleo out to go into the Pantheon. So we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah, I think that, Varda, that marathon for me was one of the revelatory ones. And also back to the consensus point is, Sam probably loves, as he's showing his shirt right now, Sam loves Varda more than the both of us.
Has 2 dogs inspired by Varda?
I mean,
named
so
by?
that's,
absolutely. We've got Agnes Varda exactly over there on the couch right now.
Yeah.
So it really makes us look like hypocrites if we don't have a Varda title in the Pantheon.
Yeah, I think it was that revisit last year, which just made me appreciate how much she's thinking about and how light a touch she brings to all of these. I mean, she's a
great way to describe her
she's
work.
As intellectually committed and engaged. Rigorous. But I mean,
but it's the light touch. It's the light touch.
And it's because she's more interested in life, in the life of her subjects, but everything they encounter. Oh, I just love her. So you went where I was going to have to go, Adam. So we're helping each other out here. I'm going off the grid. I was going to do Umbrellas of Cherbourg for my marathon pick, which I'm not against, but this other title has been like my second pick. It was in the mix both last year and it was this year, and I keep knocking it back. But because we've got Varda up there now, I do have Agnes Varda the dog. I do have Jacques Demy the dog. I might owe it, but maybe I'll wait till next year. I'm going to throw Stop Making Sense in here
It was a consideration for me in the Sacred Cow category.
Again, this is another
Maybe my
one.
number 2.
Yeah. I mean, this is a film that I have had the experience a couple times now, and everyone should have in their life, of seeing this in a packed space, whether it's a theater, it was a bar last year for me. It is ecstatic. It is ecstatic cinema. And it is cinema. It is, and you guys did. It was part of. It was a Sacred Cow. It was part of our 8 from 84 series. We packaged it with Purple Rain and
what was it? Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap, yeah,
Yeah.
Spinal Tap. But I think from what I remember of that conversation, still, you were able to convey the real, power of it as cinema, as a film of Demi's film, not Demi. Okay, that's where I'm pivoting.
Yes.
I'm adding an M and an E. Stop making sense. Belongs, or at least it deserves a shot. It was you'd seen it before, Adam, the 8 from 84, and Josh, you'd seen it, or
yes,
okay,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And for the longest time, it was a movie. I love the Talking Heads. I know you were not a fan of the Talking Heads, Adam, but
Growing up, I wasn't.
Right.
Yeah, after I watched Stop Making Sense,
you become one. I remember thinking, and not watching it, I was never a fan of concert films. And it was like, well, how great can a concert film be? And really, if that's your opinion, you have a treat awaiting you, because you discover right away, from the very first moments of the film, you're taken on a very special journey as you see first a band, and then what feels like the entire earth being created on stage, celebratory thing. So yeah, Stop Making Sense. Let's do it. Let's see how it does.
Honestly, it was going to be mine if Cleo was gone. That was probably where I was going to go for Sacred Cow. So I'm glad you went with it. Yeah. Josh, your last pick, it's wild card for you and wild card for me.
All right. Wild card. Do we have a John Ford film in the Pantheon?
We do not.
We don't.
Okay. Is there a chance that invalidates the entire project?
Exactly.
There's
crossed my mind.
School of thought that would say that. Yes.
So I'm going to propose, I don't know if this is the right choice, but I haven't seen everything of his, seen a fair amount. And one that I think deserves to be in the Pantheon is How Green Was My Valley from 1941. This is an adaptation of the
Spotting.
Same.
I thought it might be for both of you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fun. That would be fun then to give you a chance to check this out. It's an adaptation, Richard Llewellyn novel about a coal mining family in 19th century Wales. Basically, it's a strange film because it chronicles the work stoppages, the hunger, the heartbreak, the illness, the death, the separation that defines this community's life. But it's somehow honestly warm and nostalgic. At least that's how it struck me. And that balancing act is a bit magical that Ford managed. It's a movie I've long wanted to watch again and to see if I was just like in a receptive mood, in a good mood, or what's going on. I know the compositions here, especially of groups, of how he frames this community, are staggering, and why you have to recognize, just from the aspect of, yes, filling the frame and knowing how to do that and where to put the camera, Ford was foundational. So yeah, I've only seen it once, struck me as one of the greats. I am kind of glad that neither of you have, because I would love to hear what you make of it. So my wild card is going to be How Green Was My Valley.
I love that we're going to be watching Citizen Kane and How Green Was My Valley this spring.
Appropriate.
Love it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Citizen
true.
Kane as a Pantheon title that's having an anniversary, right?
Yeah.
So one we were going to watch anyway and finally discuss, an obvious Pantheon title that we needed to have a conversation about. And now How Green Was My Valley, as I said, a blind spot, one I always felt like was, there's maybe more conventional, edgier cinephile picks, right? But nevertheless, it was a film I felt like I really need to see this. And now Now I'll finally have a reason.
That's
so
fun.
I'm
Good stuff.
excited about that. So what films will we be visiting or revisiting over the next few weeks here on Filmspotting? We know that we have Rashomon. We know that we have, I wonder if I'll have a different perspective on it this time. Rashomon.
Well done.
How Green Was My Valley.
Do we have a third?
And we are about to have a third because I am going to name it.
I was looking at the
My
titles.
final pick.
Ah.
I'm building up the suspense a little
There we
here,
go.
Sam. My third and final choice is my wild card choice, and I'm gonna throw out a little test here. We'll see if you guys pass or if I fail. Actually, if I was going to suggest that there was a first lady of film spotting,
Yeah.
you might say it's Agnes Varda.
No,
You might say it.
I wonder if you'll go where I almost went. Okay.
Okay, so you
First
might say
lady.
that, but also you might not say that because, she hasn't been around for, she hasn't been making films
I know who it is.
for, the bulk of the time that film spotting has been around here, right? If you want to think of a filmmaker
Oh,
who's been
okay.
vital during the period
Okay.
that film spotting has been around, if I said to you, who is the first lady of film spotting, who would it be? And this is not rhetorical. I'm asking.
Yeah,
Do you
I
have
was
an
gonna
answer?
go with Gerwig, but no, I know who it is. It's Reichert.
Chantal
It's
Ackerman?
Reichert. It's Reichert.
Chantal Ackerman is in the Pantheon with Jean Dielman, of course, and it's awful lonely there for Chantal Ackerman. Sam, you're very astute.
Yeah.
I am considering for this spot. Yes, I'm considering Greta Gerwig, but I think we've said it many times. The praise that we have given to Kelly Reichert's films over the years here on the show says everything we need to say. The fact that I have interviewed her 3 times on the show is also a key factor. The hardest part here is just which movie do you choose?
Yep.
With Reichert. And I did give this a lot of thought, and I've gone back and forth. I honestly wondered if First Cow wasn't the choice because of how much I like that movie. I think it finished 2nd or 3rd that year.
Has it been 5 years?
In terms of my top 10 films of that year. But the movie, and here's part of why it is making the list, is making the list because I do think it's the movie that belongs in the Pantheon. But here's an added bonus. Okay. These wild card titles are movies that we are revisiting. It was reviewed on the show originally when it came out. It's a 2010 movie. So it was reviewed on the show before you joined, Josh. It was reviewed by myself and Maddie.
I know where you're going.
I
And
haven't
it's the
seen
right
it.
direction.
What's that?
I know where you're going,
Yeah.
and it's the
Yeah.
right direction.
It's
Well,
Reichert's John
I-
Ford film. So there we go.
It's Reichert's John Ford. There you
Yeah,
go. And Josh, I
it's-
know it's number 1 on your ranking of Kelly Reichert films. I don't have a letterbox ranking of Kelly Reichert films somehow, it seems, even though I think I've seen all of her movies except for one. And if I had one, Meek's Cutoff is the movie that I would put there.
Yeah.
I still feel
Good
like
stuff.
it is her masterpiece. It is, if you could only watch one Kelly Reichert film that summed up the entirety of her filmmaking skills and what she has to say, what she has said as a filmmaker, I feel like it's Meek's Cutoff. I know that people could probably argue with that and would argue with that, and that's great. That's exciting about this too. That's exciting about this pick. That's exciting about Kelly Reichert as a filmmaker. But Meek's Cutoff is where I would go. We have pointed to that movie a ton. Josh, even on episode 500, I believe, at the Music Box, that live show we did, top 5 movies of the film spotting era. Now, granted, that was 2015, and we've had 10 more years since then, but it was my number 5. I think it made my top 5 in 2015, top 5 movies of the film spotting era. So Meek's Cutoff is the film that I feel like is essential. Kelly Reichert is the filmmaker. You talked about Kurosawa. Obviously, that's a little bit of a different scale, Josh or Sam, but in terms of the past 20 years, it's Kelly Reichert who needs to be represented.
I love this. I think To me, it's her masterpiece, though I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times. It's been a while, and she's made some incredibly good films since. So that
Yes.
maybe deserves some reconsideration. This works great, Adam. The film studies course I'm taking right now, we have a unit on like landscape cinema, eco cinema, the cinema of the West beyond Hollywood Westerns. I'm right in the wheelhouse, so my mind is going to be in that space already. And love this choice.
A movie about a man whose job is to take these people to the promised land and instead takes them absolutely nowhere. I can't imagine if we might find anything resonant. Yeah. I can't imagine. No. I don't know what we'll find. No. So 15th anniversary actually didn't get released, I think, until the spring of 2011. So I think we're looking at its 15th anniversary this April. So good timing.
Okay. You may be right.
There you go.
Okay. 9 titles. We have laid them out for you. Rashomon, Best Years of Our Lives, Close Up, Harlan County, USA, The Battle of Algiers, Cleo from 5 to 7, Stop Making Sense, How Green Was My Valley, Meek's Cutoff. They're so good, I want to put all 9 of them in.
They're also good.
I think we did well, guys. But alas, only 2 of them can go in. And yes, we will have 3 of those titles that we will be discussing over the next few weeks here on the show. And we'll just go in order, I imagine. The order in which they were mentioned. We'll start with Rashomon. Fair enough.
Great.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, chronological is good too. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be
Is it,
green.
or
That
is
would
it
be
not?
How Green Is My Valley. Yeah.
It would go How Green. Do you want to do?
Let's do
Want to
that.
do chronological?
Let's
How
do
Green?
chronological.
Let's do that. Okay.
Yeah, chronological. I like.
How Green Was My Valley, then Rashomon, and then we'll end up with Meek's Cutoff from there. For more about the Filmspotting Pantheon, you can find that at filmspotting.net/Pantheon. Sam, great to see you and hear from you as always.
Thanks for having me,
joining
guys. So much fun.
Yep. We'll see ya.
See ya.
That's our show for this week. If you would like to connect with Adam and the show on Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, or YouTube, you can find him at Filmspotting. You can find me at those places as Larson on Film. We are independently produced and listener supported. You can support the show by joining the Filmspotting family over at filmspottingfamily.com. You can listen early and ad-free. You'll get a weekly newsletter, monthly bonus episodes, and access to the entire show archive. For show t-shirts and other merch, you can go to filmspotting.net/shop.
If you're a Danny Boyle fan, you might want to become a Filmspotting family member. There's a fair amount of Boyle in the Filmspotting archive. 28 years later, Conversation 1049, T2 Trainspotting with Danny Boyle on the show. Top 5 Danny Boyle characters with the man himself, 626. Steve Jobs, 559. Trance, 441. 127 Hours, 326. Slumdog Millionaire, 235. We're going out of order a little bit. Sunshine, 254. He's on that show talking about Sunshine. And Millions is episode number 2. Also, I referenced Blank Check in my intro to Trainspotting. I also did an appearance during their Danny Boyle series, Trainspodcasting. I talked about Millions as part of that series on Blank Check, if you're curious. In limited release, Scarlet, the latest from Japanese animator Mamoru Hosoda. We also have Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. This is the new film from Matt Johnson, who made 2023's Blackberry. I am very curious about this film. Out in wide release, Gore Verbinski's Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. It's an interesting premise, Josh. A man from the future, that man is Sam Rockwell, arrives at a diner in LA where he must recruit disgruntled patrons to join him on a one-night 6-block quest to save humanity from extinction.
I like that premise. I'm also a bit of a Gore Verbinski defender, so I might have to catch up with that.
Are you a Gore Verbinski completist? Is your list on your ranking on Letterboxd?
Ooh, great question. After what's the one he did about like Europe period set, like a spa, like a wellness spa? The Cure for Wellness. Cure for Wellness.
That's it. Yeah.
If he's made one since then, I haven't seen it, but I have caught up.
Probably
to that
has. But
yeah, probably has.
We're not going to take the time to look it up right now. Cold Storage is out. Liam Neeson is a grizzled, well, what other kind could he be? Bioterror operative who helps 2 employees at a self-storage facility survive the wildest night shift ever. It sounds like you could merge his character with Sam Rockwell's character in the Gore Verbinski movie. they'd be pretty interchangeable. I do love Sam's note here for us. Is everyone in Hollywood okay? I think we know the answer to that.
Sam's such a caring guy.
Okay. An elusive thief, a disillusioned insurance broker, a relentless detective. It's Crime 101 with Chris Hemsworth, Halle Berry, Mark Ruffalo, Barry Keoghan. I'm not going to do all the names. There's a lot more people. One heist connects them all. Yeah, it's Crime 101.
How's your throat? That was seemed like it might have strained things a bit.
Okay, now this is also interesting, Josh. Goat, a small goat with big dreams, gets a once-in-a-lifetime shot to join the pros and play Roarball with the fastest, fiercest animals in the world. So this is yet another sports movie I need to see. It's possibly inspired by the life and career of the movie's executive producer, Steph Curry. Are you interested?
I was increasingly confused with every word you said, but I'm now wondering if this is like a low-key dig subtweet at LeBron. Goat. Steph Curry produces a film.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly about himself. Okay. I don't know what's going on here, and I don't know if I have capacity in my life to find out.
Okay. Next week, we'll talk about what is probably the biggest movie opening. It's certainly the one we're most interested in. It's Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights. Mariah Gates will join us for that. And we will talk about the first film that was nominated for our Pantheon. It is 1941's How Green Was My Valley. I have some homework to do. I'm looking forward to it.
Filmspotting is produced by Golden Joe Dassault and Sam Van Hallgren. Without Sam and Golden Joe, this show wouldn't go. Our production assistant is Sophie Kempenaar. Special thanks to everyone at WBEZ Chicago. More information is available at wbez.org. For Filmspotting, I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar. Thanks for listening.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.